What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Garden Room Podcast. If you are new here, which I've been noticing, there's been a few new people to join the Garden Room, and I'm so excited you all are here. My name is Mari Thrower, and these are devotional podcasts to hopefully encourage you and uplift you throughout your week. And as always, I'm excited for today's topic as we're going to be talking about fear and really how to make the most of what we have, and how a lot of times our fears, our mindset, our viewpoint can honestly hinder us and keep us just held back from the things that God has called us to do, and the things that we have control over, and the things that He's given us. We've been given a lot of different things in a lot of different ways, but fear can be the root of why we don't make the most of just the resources and the giftings and really the assignment that God has placed on each of our lives. And so I want to get right into the word today, you guys, because we got a decent amount of just text that I want to go through. And so we're going to be coming out of Matthew chapter 25. Some of you guys are probably familiar with this passage. Also, I'm going to have to put on the glasses today, guys, because my eyesight has been getting progressively worse, I feel like, over the past couple months. I don't know if it's just because I've been staring at my computer screen, doing schoolwork so much, or just been on my phone a little bit extra, but I just need to go get my eyes checked out. These are from high school, and I still need to get new frames. I only have prescription too in one eye, which is crazy. I have 20/20 in the other eye, but anyway, we're just gonna have to roll with it today. But getting into Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 through 30, we're going to be reading about the parable of the bags of gold. So starting in verse 14, it says, "Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more bags. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more bags. But the man who received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. 'Master,' he said, 'you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more.' His master replied, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness.' The man with 2 bags of gold also came. 'Master,' he said, 'you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more.' His master replied, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things, and I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness.' Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. 'Master,' he said, 'I knew you were a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid,' keyword, 'and went out and hid your gold in the ground. So here is what belongs to you.' His master replied, 'You wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags, for whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they will have will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.'" You guys, that entire passage was a lot, but it was very, very, very just eye-opening for me. And I've heard people preach on this topic, people go through this text, people just run through this word, but how often do I see myself in the shoes of the person with 1 bag of gold? And that is what I want to talk about today. And that's really what I want to focus on, because a lot of us have been given a gift. We have been given a calling. Like I mentioned earlier, we have been given something that the Lord has placed in our hands. And for me personally, I have let fear constantly cripple me and keep me from really investing into that gift and into that calling. And a lot of us can kind of run around saying, I don't know what my calling is. I don't know what my purpose is. But when I just look at the word and I look at what God has instructed us to do, the simple calling and purpose is loving Him and loving other people and doing that well. And I started to see when I was walking those things out in different areas of my life, then the Lord was helping me to keep investing and keep multiplying and keep growing in the areas that He has called me to do that. And so a lot of us have a specific thing that we're doing, that we're working on, whether it's in our jobs or careers, or a lot of us are maybe called to something totally different where it's something in missions, or you're just called to be a mom, or you're called to be a friend to other people. And a lot of those things can look different because there's so many different giftings inside of each of us. However, fear is something that the enemy wants to keep whispering in your ear, saying, this idea that you have is never going to work. If you really felt like God called you to that, then you probably are lying to yourself. It probably is not something that He really wants you to do. All those different things that we can constantly keep just running over and over in our head, and we're second guessing ourselves. And we can start to find ourselves living in fear that every step that we take, everything that we do, we're living in fear of man, we're living in fear of ourselves, and we're not really living in fear of who God is. Because when we respect what God has called us to do, when we know what He has said is valuable, then we start to have more of a healthy fear of, God, I don't want to waste what you've given me. I don't want to throw away what you've given me as if it's not worth anything. I want to abide in the instructions that you have given me over my life, and not just keep living by the fear of my own intentions, or the fear of other people's viewpoints, or the fear of failure. And that's a viewpoint that's really hindered me in some areas, saying, why would I start something if I feel like I can't finish it? Why would I do something if I feel like I can't succeed fully? And I think a lot of times we can start looking at all these other people who are doing so well, and they have all of this stuff, and they look like they've made it and they've reached the top, and they have all these followers, they have all this fame, or even without that, they just built a successful life and they've built a successful ministry or a successful business. But are we looking at their lives from start to finish? Probably not. Are we recognizing that it took work for them to just get there? And some people we see that just life ends up falling into their hands and it looks like they're not putting in as much work, but nobody really knows the process behind the finished product. Only you know that. Only you are able to see that. And so I think a lot of times we just start comparing our process to other people's product, and we're not able to hold on to God's promises in the midst of that. And He's saying that I won't leave you or forsake you. If I started a good work in you, then I will finish that. And I have to go back and find the reference for that scripture. But those are the things that we can hold on to, especially when we know that God has spoken those things over our lives. And a lot of times we say, well, I haven't really heard anything from God. I did that for a long time until I recognized God has already spoken in His word. Yes, there might be detailed things. There might be things that I'm not saying don't seek God's face for your life or where you're supposed to be at in a detailed and specific way. But there has been a huge blanket statement that God has said in His word for us to follow after, to keep making disciples and keep fishing for men and keep winning over the hearts and the souls of people in this world for the kingdom of God. And we can't do that without the Lord. So therefore we have to keep seeking God's face as well. It's a both and of seeking God and knowing that He's going to work, because we can put all this pressure on ourselves as well, saying, God, I won't be able to make an impact here. But I had to tell myself, this is not based off of what I'm doing. This is based off of what God is doing in me and through me. And that's a very humbling experience. It's a very just eye-opening just perspective to have, but it's reality of I'm not in control of everything. God has given me a space, and He's given me free will, and He's given me dominion over things. So I do get the chance to just dictate different areas of my life. But when I'm able to give those areas back to God and saying, I'm not just seeking this for myself, then we're able to start seeing God work and His principles start flowing out of us. And that's another thing that I had to recognize too: discipline, obedience, consistency. And I can't wake up overnight thinking that all these things are just going to pop up out of nowhere. All these things are going to start unfolding without me putting in the work. But I can know and be fully reassured that God is with me throughout the entire process, and that He is able to help work things in me and out of me to refine me to get to where I need to go, and also to be right here in the moment. I think a lot of times we are trying to get to this final end, this final product, but part of it is recognizing that God is with me right here, right now. And it's not just about how perfect I can be or how well I can perform or how much I can do. It is about how much I can get to know the Father throughout the process. You get to know God's characteristics when you start operating in His principles, and you start to see the fulfillment and the goodness of His promises throughout that entire process. And that is something that I think we miss out on because His presence is wrapped up in that. His character, His heart is wrapped up in the process of us constantly following after Him. And so don't let fear overtake the things that you feel like God has been pulling at your heart for, the things that you feel like you have this dream or you have this goal, you have this vision for your life. Don't let fear hinder you from that. And also don't let fear keep you from being disciplined and just following in obedience when you cannot see what is going to take place in the future. And I really have to start asking myself, you guys, do I see God's word as something that is valuable? Do I value what He values? Do I actually see this as something that's worth my investment, worth my time, worth my money, worth my resources? Do I see God as something that is worth gold? Because a lot of us, and I'll say gold just in terms of this analogy, but like a lot of us genuinely, we put so much time and effort into all these other things that are great, or we don't put any time and effort into too much of anything, and we just will find ourselves not really doing much with our life because we don't really see our lives as valuable. And that was something that was so beautiful and just eye-opening to me, to help me realize that God sees my life as valuable. God sees purpose and speaks purpose over my life. God has called me to that. Therefore, why would I see myself as anything less than? Why would I sell myself short when God is inviting me to use what He has given me to start multiplying it and investing it? Then that means He sees you as someone who is worth carrying out the good work that He wants to start and finish in you. And when you don't see yourself as worthy enough or valuable enough or cool enough or pretty enough or good enough or smart enough or athletic enough or capable to do anything that you are just leaning towards, or what God is calling you towards, or what you're asked of, when you don't see yourself falling into any of those categories and you just are constantly saying, I can't do this, then you will start to find yourselves not investing in the things that God has told you to do because you don't see yourself as a worthy investment. But God sees you in that way. Don't let other people tell you what you can or can't do. Let God direct you in what He has called you to do, and start walking that out. And then you will be able to see that I don't have to live in fear anymore. I don't have to just go run and hide the things that God has called me towards. And I don't have to go bury my life. I don't have to go bury my giftings. I don't have to go bury my talent into a hole or into things that don't have purpose, because I know who I am. And our time here is valuable. Your time here is precious. God put you here for a reason right now. And although there's so many different things that are going on in our world, and although we are living in a place that has so many different just twisted and corrupted things that are taking place, God is still here. God is still moving. God is still working. And He is calling you to be a part of that. That we are image bearers, as my college pastor always says, to bring the kingdom of heaven down here on earth. That is a beautiful title. That is a beautiful calling. And that is something that you and I get to be a part of. So don't let your just thoughts and your viewpoint of yourself keep you from really expanding on the things that God has put in your heart. And so keep that in mind as we are able to go throughout our jobs, go throughout school, go throughout just whatever environment that God has placed us in right now in this season. And don't look to the left, don't look to the right and see that, oh, somebody has way more stuff than I do. Somebody is way more put together than I am. Use what you have right now. Use that one bag of gold, because that person had the least amount of responsibility, actually. I think we a lot of times look at the person with 5 or 10 and say, look at all that they have and look at what they were able to start off with. Look at their house, look at their car, look at all this stuff. They have it so much easier than I do. Look at all their resources. I only just have this. But that's a lot more responsibility. All those leadership roles, all those different promotions, all those different things that are at a higher level that we feel like we want to keep getting to, that's a lot more responsibility, especially if you're doing it in the way that God has called you to. And so it's important that we are able to value this one thing that God has put inside of us, this one thing that God is telling us to steward and take care of and to grow and to prosper and to multiply. It is so, so vital that you see that as a valuable gift from the Lord and not just throw it away, because God is instructing you and calling you to just keep investing in the things of his kingdom. And throughout that, we're able to draw closer to him and know more of his heart and ultimately give him more glory. So I want to encourage you guys and remind you that you have a calling on your life. You have purpose on your life. God has a plan for your life. Don't waste it. Don't doubt that, but keep running towards it with everything that you have. Know that God is right there with you throughout the entire process. And at the end of the day, we'll be able to hear him say those beautiful words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." But with that, you guys, as we wrap up today's episode, know that I'm praying for each one of you. Know that I'm growing right alongside of you guys. I'm still learning all this. I'm still learning to apply it, but know that God has grace and know that he is able to do exceedingly more than we can ask, think, or imagine as we keep seeking his face. And I'm so, so thankful for each one of you. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And until the next episode, keep growing with God. See you guys later.